down and as one of my favorite matches to look back on.
Well, hello, old friend.
Hi there.
Hi, Matt Barry, L. Duncan. We actually have not worked a show together since the start of NBA free agency.
That is correct.
Right, which was about 12 days ago. And I have said, this can't be real no less than 5 times in that span.
All right, so at this point, the argument is over. At 8:26 p.m. Eastern yesterday, when Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted that Chris Paul was being traded for Russell Westbrook, it cemented the fact that the NBA offseason, it's the greatest show in sports. This Western Conference altering deal reunites Westbrook with his former Thunder teammate James Harden. The Rockets sent Paul 2 protected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps in the deal, and according to league sources, this was a deal that both Harden and Westbrook were happy about happening, and the 2 MVPs joined forces in Houston. So the Thunder have acquired 8 future first-round picks this offseason in deals involving Westbrook, Paul George, and Jeremy Grant. That gives them 15 total first-rounders through 2026, and on top of that, they'll have an opportunity to swap 4 different times. It was just 2016, remember, when Westbrook pledged his loyalty to the Thunder.
Obviously, me being able to come back here is a true blessing. There's nowhere else I would rather be than Oklahoma City. Definitely when I had the opportunity to be able to be loyal to you guys, that's the number one option, and loyalty is something I stand by. So thank you guys, and I appreciate everything.
The Golden State Warriors advance to their 5th consecutive Western Conference Final. For the 2nd straight year, they eliminate the Rockets here in Houston. Just a painful way to end the season once again for Chris Paul, James Harden, and the Rockets.
I know what we need to do. I know exactly what we need to do. Just we'll figure it out this summer.
You said you know exactly what you need to do. What is that?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it.
Okay, so we've heard from James Harden regarding the trade. When I left OKC, I was sad. Then Houston made a home for me. Rockets is my home, and now an opportunity came available where Russ wasn't happy. Now we're back. It's going to be a lot of fun this year. I guarantee you that. Adrian Wojnarowski, he's made this entire offseason fun. Joins us now from Las Vegas. And Woj, how did this deal come together last night?
2 very motivated parties, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Russell Westbrook. They both wanted a deal done in short order. And because the marketplace was limited, Houston, Miami, and those were 2 teams that Russell Westbrook was open to going to. He really wanted the Rockets, and Sam Presti was able to push Houston to get those 2 first-round picks, get the 2 pick swaps, and get a deal done in short order. And now Russell Westbrook, James Harden, back together again, this time in Houston.
Yeah, and Woj, I think that was kind of the wow moment with this, because even on this show yesterday, we were talking about Russell Westbrook and connect with Miami, and then last night we get the deal with Houston, which really surprised a lot of people. Now let's go to the other side of this with Chris Paul in Oklahoma City. Where do things stand with him?
Well, they're trying to make this a similar scenario to the Westbrook trade. Oklahoma City would like to get a deal done quickly and move Chris Paul on to another destination, and that's got them dealing with the Miami Heat. Again, Miami didn't get Westbrook, but they're very involved in trying to get Chris Paul to the Heat. They'd like to find a pathway to a deal here. There are not a lot of combinations among that roster and salaries to be really creative with a deal. It's pretty clear, I think, to both sides of where some of the deal points are, and there's some hope that they can find a way to get Chris Paul into a Miami uniform sooner than later. He has no interest in playing a season in Oklahoma City. They don't. They want to turn this team over to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who came in the Clippers deal. Chris Paul's 34 years old. He wants to play for a team that's contending. He'd like to join Jimmy Butler in Miami, and they're working on trying to get a deal done soon.
Such is the trend in the NBA right now. Pair up with another superstar. Maybe Chris Paul is next. Let's stay with the Thunder. What might Sam Presti do now with all of their equity from the moves this offseason? What exactly is in play here for this franchise?
Well, 8 first-round picks since the night of the NBA draft. Potentially 15 picks between now and 2026. And they have other players on the roster, veteran players that maybe not in the offseason, but at the trade deadline, a Danilo Gallinari, a Steven Adams, who are going to have value around the league and potentially could bring back more assets for a Thunder team that is endeavoring on a rebuild, unlike we've seen in terms of a collection of assets in this modern era of the NBA.
Woj, I know it's 3:05 out there in the Vegas, so feel free if the Chris Paul thing comes down, do it between 3 and 4 p.m. Vegas time. We'd be happy to have that news here on SportsCenter. Adrian Wojnarowski with us out there in the desert. Rockets have now the 4th best odds to win it all following the Westbrook acquisition. The balance of power resides in that Western Conference as 5 of the 7 title favorites are from the West. The Lakers still the favorites, but the Clippers and Bucks are close behind.
You just saw Stephen A. Smith guest hosting on PTI, and he joins us now here on SportsCenter. Stephen A., I'm going to ask you to give some thoughts and a bit of a dual approach. First, I want you to tell me how Westbrook and Harden Part 2 could be successful.
Well, I think they could be successful because both are formidable offensively. They're capable of giving each other's minutes off, nights off, while being on the same court with one another. They're just that lethal offensively. Clearly, Westbrook has struggled in terms of shooting from three-point range, just 29% over the last couple of years, not to mention 65% from the free throw line. But he can get to the hole at will. He's got the athleticism to finish at the basket. He's 4 years younger than Chris Paul, obviously more athletic, bigger, and stronger. And I definitely think that helps take some of the pressure off of James Harden, not to mention the fact that they love one another as brothers. They wanted to play together, and whatever necessary sacrifices that are there to be made, they're clearly going to be willing to do so. To me, Mike D'Antoni is a question mark because of his ability or lack thereof potentially to coach them, particularly in pressurized moments come postseason time. But in basketball, if you got 2 individual stars who can flat out ball and are lethal offensively on most nights, that's going to leave you successful. And that's why I assume that the Houston Rockets are going to be no different.
Okay, so some hopeful optimism there. Let's give them a dose of pessimism. What could go wrong?
Well, what could go wrong is that obviously James Harden being ball dominant, Russell Westbrook desiring to be ball dominant. If one or the other doesn't give in that regard, that could be a problem. But I don't anticipate that. What I anticipate to be potentially the biggest problem is that as the playoffs wane and pressurized moments mount, Mike D'Antoni is going to have to show that he's willing to make adjustments and modifications and coach against some of the elite coaches in the game, whether it's Steve Kerr in Golden State, Doc Rivers, obviously, with the Los Angeles Clippers, or even to a lesser degree, the Terry Stotts of the world in Portland, the Quinn Snyder in Utah. These guys can really, really coach. And so when you look at it from that perspective, Mike D'Antoni is going to have to show he belongs. Remember, this past offseason, Tillman Fertitta, the owner for the Houston Rockets, wanted to offer Mike D'Antoni an incentive-laden contract that paid him $5 million plus $1 million extra for every round that he won. Why? Because he has expectations that he anticipates will be met, or else. He was looking at the coach, not just the players. We have to remember that.
Okay, so then do you think then that since Fertitta orchestrated this, that D'Antoni's seat is now hotter or somehow cooler after this deal?
Oh, it's not cooler. It's definitely hotter because there are expectations. At the end of the day, Fertitta had expectations because Houston had gone to a Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals the year before. Even though they played in Game 5 and lost that Game 5, Kevin Durant had gone down. He wanted them to win Game 6 of this past Western Conference semifinal series. The expectations, though, was somewhat calm simply because you knew that Golden State was the better team. In this particular instance, he believes they've upgraded Chris Paul, although he's thankful for Chris Paul's service. He's 4 years older than Russell Westbrook. Obviously not the same kind of athlete that Russell Westbrook is. And the pairing of James Harden with Russell Westbrook, which is clearly something James Harden wanted, definitely comes with expectations for Harden, for GM Daryl Morey, and definitely for Coach Mike D'Antoni, because Tillman Fertitta does not play. The man is not playing games. I don't know how many times I got to say this to people. He's not playing. He is looking to get rid of people. He may not be able to get rid of some of these contracts that the players have, but he can certainly get rid of a coach. And he will not hesitate to do it, in my estimation, if Mike D'Antoni doesn't measure up to snuff. It's just that simple.
They've made it quite clear, championship or bust. Stephen A. Smith with his thoughts, both good and bad, on how it could go down in H-Town.
They ain't winning the championship, though. I ain't going that
far. Okay, well, temper that.
Championship.
Okay.
This just in. Much more coverage surrounding the Westbrook Paul trade. Charles Barkley is going to join us live for his breakdown on the deal. Plus, Windy standing by for perspective. And the rivalry was